Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Indiscretion, which is episode 4 of season 4 of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. This video is part of a series of videos in which I review episodes of Deep Space Nine, one episode at a time. In this video, I cover the 4th season episode Indiscretion. So Indiscretion is the episode in which Kira wants to go on a mission to find an old friend who was lost in a Cardassian prison transport ship. But the Cardassian, their new allies, insist that they send a representative with her, and it turns out to be Dukat. And so the two of them kind of sort of bond, and they also bicker at each other as they go on this mission looking for the ship. But we didn't learn that Dukat also knew someone on the ship, particularly a lover, a secret Bajoran lover, and their half Cardassian, half Bajoran child. Now, they do find out that his lover had passed away. However, the child is still alive, and Dukat wishes to kill the child because she's a disgrace to him and his culture because he had her outside of wedlock and, of course, is part Bajoran. And so his career would be ruined, so he's determined to kill her, and they find that she, along with the other survivors of the ship, are being held prisoner by the Breen and forced to work in mines. So Kira and Dukat come up with a plan to disguise themselves as Breen, and they sneak in and start rescuing the prisoners. However, Dukat is determined to kill his daughter Ziyal, but Kira is determined to stop him, and a Mexican showdown comes up where he's pointing a phaser at her and Kira's pointing a phaser at him, but Ziyal just says, if this is what you want to do, just kill me because I don't really want to live without you. And so Dukat softens, embraces her and lets her live, and he takes her back home, even though it's going to mean his career is destroyed. So, I know I stopped, as I said, if you're watching my Voyager reviews as well, I stopped recording episodes of Voyager. I had mentioned that, ever since season 5 of TNG, I record every single episode off the TV on VHS when it first came out, and I would watch them repeatedly, so I've seen them a bunch of times. But I eventually stopped doing that during Deep Space Nine and Voyager. And I hadn't gotten to that point in Deep Space Nine yet. I'm close to, so I actually kept going a little bit longer than I did on Voyager. But the thing is, so I did have this on VHS, but I hardly ever watched it because I gotta be honest, I think this episode's kind of boring. It's not really my thing. I don't think it's terrible, but it's not particularly remarkable. For me, it's just kind of dull. So first of all, we were introduced to the dude who was from Recall and Total Recall. He also played that, strategist dude on the TNG episode. God, what the hell is the name of that episode? It's the one where they're doing the test battle thing and Riker's on the ship, and the guy hates Riker and treats him like a dick. Peak Performance, that's it. So, but yeah, and I've seen him in a ton of other stuff as well, and most of them from Total Recall. But so he's a Bajoran. I think I mentioned in that episode that he played a Bajoran here because I kind of forgot about that. Yeah, so it was cool seeing him. But he calls up Kira and is like, "Oh, that ship that we, the audience, never heard of, we found it." And it goes dun dun dun, and music fades to black, and I'm like, okay, so what the hell does that mean? I guess the music cues us in that it's important to Kira somehow, but we don't know how, so it's whatever. But the thing is my interest is never gained later because it's still referencing some random off-screen person that Kira knew before the show started, and some random off-screen ship that was around before the show started. So I never care. Like, I never feel connected to that, and I'm not invested in this mission. Like, they make a big deal. Oh, Dukat has to come on the mission, and Dukat's being a dick, and they have to meet up with the Total Recall guy, and he's a dick to Dukat. And actually, I like the line that he said, but I'll get to that later because I got a Dukat discussion coming up. But anyway, point is, I never got interested in that dumb ship because I don't know who this person is, and this is some bullshit that happened before the show started, and I'm just not invested in it. I couldn't care less if Kira and Dukat find this ship. Now, to be fair, it does get a little bit more interesting once they introduce the concept of Dukat's daughter, but it's still something that occurred off screen before the show started, so I'm still a little bit more invested, but because the whole concept of him killing his own daughter, but still not super invested. Okay, so let's get to Dukat. So the line that the dude said was, it's the, because Dukat said something like, why don't we just stop insulting each other and work together, or something along those lines. And Total Recall guy was like, oh yes, the face of the new Cardassia. So compassionate and caring, it almost makes you forget that you were in charge of, I can't remember exact words. It's like you were in charge of working Bajorans to death during the occupation, or that you were this dictator. Almost makes you forget. Like, I thought that was cool because that's actually an excellent point. And that's why I hate episodes that make Dukat to be out a good guy, because he's not. He's a dictator at heart. He worked Bajorans to death. Now, there is an argument to be had on whether or not Dukat is made out to be a good guy in this episode, because you get a line like that again reminds us that Dukat worked Bajorans to death. He's actively trying to kill his own daughter. Not a particularly good guy thing to do. And he says some some offensive things about the occupation. I think in this episode he even said the occupation helped Bajor. And I love how Kira was like having, conversation with him, but then once he said that, she completely changed demeanor, and it was like, oh, really? What part helped the Bajorans? The murder or the working people to death? Like, so we are reminded of Dukat's past and that he's not a good person, and his whole point is to kill his daughter. But counter argument, most of the episode is spent with him and Kira sort of just chatting. Other than a few moments like the one I just mentioned, they're mostly like bonding, really. Like the scene where he like sat on something sharp and he was like, I sat on something. Kira starts laughing and hands him the dermal regenerator, and they have a good laugh. That's like a bonding moment. And then when he talks about his, Bajoran lover who died, she's like sympathetic to him. And then even though she like threatens to kill him, after that's over, after he embraces Ziyal, they have like is sort of warm, like, I wouldn't say embrace, but it's like a warm conversation where, Kira's like, oh, it's such a good thing that you're doing. And he's like, oh, yes, this is going to be great. I'm going to take her back to Cardassia. And she's like, won't that damage your career? And he's like, I'll let you know. Like, the way he says that is like such a like warm, like friendly manner. I'll let you know. So I come down on ultimately that they do make him too friendly in this episode, even though they do remind us that he's a dictator and he worked Bajorans to death, and even though the whole plot is about him trying to kill his own daughter. Even so, moments like that, and especially like the sitting on something sharp and the bonding and the being friendly and warm with each other, doesn't sit right to me. It just doesn't. It's like, I think the episode is like trying to say that, oh, people can change. Like, you can reform, you can forgive. And so this is an interesting conversation because I just watched this review on Dukat, which is my favorite episode of the whole franchise. And I totally and utterly disagreed with the point the reviewer is making. They're trying to say that by saying Maritza was actually a good person, they're trying to justify Nazis and saying, oh, not all Nazis are bad, and that's terrible because all Nazis should be arrested. But I disagree with that because Maritza was an underling who was just a file clerk who was probably forced in the military, as we know what happens in these kind of totalitarian societies, and he was actually very much against what was going on in Bajor. In fact, was willing to sacrifice his life in order just to make a statement about it. So the whole point of that episode was don't discriminate against people just because of their race. And I think that was a very important point, and I think that particular reviewer completely missed the point, and I could not disagree with him more. However, it's a totally different thing when it comes to Dukat. If he were going to say something similar about this episode and Dukat, then I would agree with him wholeheartedly. Because Dukat wasn't just a file clerk who was forced in the military and was crying when people were torturing. He did the torturing. He ordered people. He was in control of the whole atrocities that were taking place in Bajor. He was an evil dictator, and something like that can never be redeemed. Ever. In fact, it's kind of a travesty that he's not in prison. And that has to do with the political, because unlike, World War II with the Nazis, Cardassia did not lose a war. So they're still a viable superpower, and so it's for political reasons. And then Bajor wanting to put the occupation behind them, making peace with Cardassia, which is fine. And now Cardassia has like a civilian government, so they're kind of reformed at the moment. They don't never get into too much detail on how reformed they are, but anyway, so things are different or whatever, but it's mostly political reasons that he's not in prison, because he should be. In fact, I think that maybe should have been a condition of Bajor's peace with them. I think that the people who were responsible for the atrocities during the occupation should be sent to prison. But of course, Bajor wasn't in a very strong bargaining position at the time, so it makes sense that wouldn't happen. But that's what should happen. So there's no redeeming this guy. And it's so weird that there's people online who seem to be like, oh, Dukat's a good guy, and he's not a villain, he's not evil, and the show started to suck when they made him just a flat-out evil villain. It's baked into the character. When the show was making him a flat-out evil villain, they were being true to his character. There's no redeeming. I don't give a fuck that he decides not to kill his daughter. Good for fucking him. And him being like, oh, I'm going to, risk my career instead of killing my daughter. Brownie points. You get a gold star. You're still a fucking evil dictator who worked people to death. So fuck you. No. He should be in prison or, quite frankly, dead. So he is an evil character. And whenever they have episodes that try to say, oh, he's really a nice guy, fuck those episodes. He's not a nice guy. They need to portray him as the evil villain that he is, because he is one. And I think in that case, trying to say, oh, he's actually a good guy, that is the not all Nazis argument that the guy was making about Dukat. Falsely. He was wrong about Dukat, but if he made that argument about Dukat, he would be correct. But anyway, so speaking of Dukat, this is the first episode that really followed up on and it started the whole thing with Dukat constantly flirting, hitting on Kira and trying to get with her. It was first mentioned in the episode Civil Defense. In that case, like, I felt like he wasn't even flirting with her. He was just trying to show off what a great leader he was and what a smart mind he was. But then Garrick mentioned, it's like, it won't work, you know. She's too busy to be attracted to you, and she has better taste than to be. And Dukat's like, Garrick, I should have killed you or whatever. But I don't know. I think there's an argument to be made that he wasn't actually flirting with her, or he was just showing off and Garrick was kind of overreacting. But then this episode solidifies. Like, he is very objectively and very clearly, in no argument, he is very clearly flirting with her in this episode and hitting on her hard out and trying to get with her. And of course, she's rebuting it the whole time. And I never really liked this whole thing with Dukat trying to hit on Kira, but I do think it got better in later seasons, but I didn't really care for it much in this episode. And the other thing is, you got to remember, because the whole conversation about, I can't remember her name, but Ziyal's mother, about Dukat saying, oh, I loved her and we loved each other. It wasn't like that. And Kira kind of bought into that, apparently, and being like, oh, you know, it seemed like you did love her. So, I know this is like later information, and it's a bad episode, but the episode, Wrongs Darker Than Death or Night, in the 6th season, sort of spells it out that Dukat is raping these women. Just put it plainly. He's deceiving them, he's tricking them, he's lying to them in order to get them, and somewhat forcing them. Like, they force these women into prostitution. So it's like human trafficking, or Bajoran trafficking, if you will. Like making them be comfort girls. He, you know, like, tries to win them over, and we also saw this in the episode Things Past, when he was trying to do this with Dax too, trying to be like, oh, I'm actually a misunderstood man. But we find out that he's manipulating them. He's full of shit, and he is making love to them under false pretense. And plus, there's a power dynamic there where he's practically a slave owner to them. So this whole thing about, oh, you two really did love each other. No. Even if it was consensual, it was still a form of rape, because he manipulated her and he did it under false pretenses, and he was essentially a slave owner to her. And there's a dynamic there that makes it just non-consensual, even if she did somewhat consent to it. So it's disgusting, and this episode tries to play it off like it was a true romance, and it definitely was not. So that is I'm not like super bothered by that, but I think it's a little bit disturbing for me. It's another reason why I can't get into this episode. So let's talk about the Breen. This is the first episode where we actually see the Breen. The Breen have been mentioned repeatedly it was almost like a running gag. I think the first time they were mentioned was the 5th season TNG episode Hero Worship, where they think the ship was attacked by the Breen because this, you know, kid made something up because he thought he destroyed the ship and he was lying about it. And then the Breen kept being casually mentioned over and over again throughout TNG and DS9. It was kind of like a running thing, but we finally meet them in this episode, and their look was very much based off, and I think this is confirmed by people in this attached to the show, that their look was based off of the bounty hunter costume that Princess Leia wore to Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. Like, I think they confirmed that they just copied that look, because it's very clearly that. And I don't think we hear the Breen like talk and make their noises in this episode. I don't think they did that. I can't remember when they first did that. And plus, this is the first time Dukat mentioned that their planet is ice cold and they come from an ice planet, and that's why they have to wear these costumes. In later season, the season 7 of DS9, Wayum says that that's actually a myth. That's a lie that they tell people, that her planet actually isn't cold. And I think, if I remember correctly, Discovery backs this up, because Discovery season 5 actually goes into more detail about the Breen and gives us more information than we ever got on Deep Space Nine, because they were always kind of a mysterious, unknown quantity in Deep Space Nine. In fact, they weren't really portrayed as a superpower until the end of season 7 of DS9. They were kind of just another random mercenary type race like the Nausicaans or some bullshit. But then later they turned out to be a superpower. But whatever. They're, slave owners forcing people to work in mines in this episode. And just like Princess Leia, Kira puts on it. Where did Kira get those Breen outfits from? Did they beat up some Breen and steal it from them? And if so, then they could actually see what the Breen look like, which apparently no one has ever seen that. They made that clear in Discovery. So, but whatever. I don't know. Maybe she just found the suits lying around. There's also, of course, the introduction of Ziyal. She's played by a different actor in this. Now, I realize I refer to her as a 14-year-old or 13-year-old, but they mentioned that the ship went missing 13 years ago. They didn't, or I think they did. I think that's what they were saying. And so if she was not necessarily a baby at the time, so maybe she was 5 years old, and if she was, that would make her 18. But I don't know. I was trying to figure it out. They were kind of vague, but from her looks, it does look like she's 14. The actress that cast the player. So I think they were trying to say that she was a baby, but I don't know. I think we see the same actress. No, I think they recast her for the next episode, which is the Dukat fighting the Klingon episode, whatever. I can't remember what that's called. But that's the next time we see her. And Return to Grace. That's the name of the episode. It's coming to me. But I think... So that's the next time we see her, but I think there's recast her in that episode. And they recast her with someone older, because they want her to be older all of a sudden, and the caster was someone who appears to be 18, 19. And then she has a romance with Garrick, who appears to be in his 40s or 50s. So, yeah, people complain. I always bring this up. People complain about Neelix and Cass, but the Neelix and Cass makes total sense, because Cass is the equivalent of in her 20s, if you go by Ocampan years, and Neelix is in his 30s, so no big deal. Whereas fucking Garrick and Ziyal, she's told to be 13 years old in this episode. No, they do recast her with someone older, but still, even if we were to say she was 19. It's not illegal, but it's still kind of creepy that Garrick is in his 50s. But whatever, whatever. All right, so let's talk about the B plot, and there's not really much substance to it. It's just kind of there, where Sisko gets kind of nervous about Cassidy going to live with him on the station. And at first I thought this was kind of out of character for him, but when they explained that he was scared because of his career in Starfleet cost the life of his wife, and he's scared of that affecting Cassidy, and I was like, okay, no, that makes sense. That's a good through storyline. But the one thing I will say about this B plot that I really liked, it has one of my favorite funny moments in the entire show, where Sisko says, "Oh, it's a big step," and then Cassidy has a negative reaction to that, obviously, and then later Sisko's talking to Jadzia and Bashir, and I do like this is one of the few moments where we see like, usually Sisko just talks to Jadzia. It's great to see him talking to more people and like Bashir and just having a friendly conversation. I love like character stuff like this. But anyway, when he says that, all I said was it's a big step, and Bashir is like, well, at least he didn't say it's a very big step. And then they're talking. Quark comes over and says some misogynistic bullshit, and then Sisko walks away. And Jadzia and Bashir turn to each other and is like, well, what do you think about them moving in together? And Jadzia says, well, it's a big step. And then Bashir says, it's a very big step. I love that. That's one of my favorite funny. I thought that was hilarious. I don't know if most people did, but I thought that was one of the funniest moments in the show. Now the rest of the storyline was Drake giving him good advice, and Cassidy still like withholding the kiss, but it's kind of accepting him. Yeah, it's fine. It's, as I said, there's not much to it. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Everything I wanted to cover about this episode. So, I would now like to thank my Patreon supporters for supporting me on Patreon. It's very much appreciated. It does help me continue with the channel. I'd like to give a big special shout out to Brandon Neil Howes and Jordan Johnson. Thank you so very, very much for your strong support. I'd also like to give a shout out to Tyler C., Benjamin Mead, Antarius, Greg Marley, Francisco, Chuck Hooks, Anthony D. Benedictus, Ricky, Matty Jester, Alessandro Migalacio, Norman Buchwald, Stephen Kennedy, Brenton Berg, and Allison Fordyce. Thank you all so very, very much for your support. So, we do have a few Patreon comments on this episode. First comment is from Kyrie091, who says, Indiscretion, more like this Drek, Ken. Not sure who Ken is here, but he knows who he is, and we are in this Drek together. What Drek? Oh, I'm glad you asked. We meet Ziyal, who will go on to eventually be a not weird romantic partner for Garrick. Honestly, Garrick and Bashir have better sexual chemistry than Ziyal and Garrick. Heck, I'd rather see Dukat and Garrick paired up. At least they're roughly the same age and probably listen to the same Cardassian dad rock. Booty crap, Mark. It's all booty crap. Ken knows what I'm talking about. Tell him. Okay, I gotta be honest. This Drek Ken is probably one of my least favorites. I don't think it's a particularly good one. Sorry to be, critical, but I thought of a better one. So, in this deck, son. So, when the son asks his father, like, where something is, and it's on the deck, so he says, in this deck, son. Which, he would say on the deck and not in the deck, but in the deck sounds better. In the deck, son. Or maybe they're on the boat, and he's like, get in the deck, or whatever, of the boat. I don't know. I still like it better than this Drek Ken, but that is just me. It's not like negative is not like a negative thing. I know most of your rhymes like to be like negative, putting the episode down like booty crap or great this sucks, but still, I don't know. Something about in this Drek Ken, not a fan. Because, as you mentioned, who the hell is Ken? You tell him, Ken. And it was very funny about the not weird romantic partner for Garrick. I agree. Garrick and Bashir do have more chemistry than Ziyal and Garrick ever did. However, the Garrick and Dukat thing, I'm going to have to disagree with you there. They hate each other, and I don't see any romance there. But Garrick and Bashir, 100%. Anyway, next comment is from Norman Buchwald, who says, I can see indiscretion come up from the writer's room. Let's put Dukat and Kira together on an adventure. And what resulted was important lore done well. And for a while, yeah, there is this time Kira is in a difficult position with her feelings for obviously the Bajoran Führer and the daughter Ziyal, and it should have been enough Dukat had affairs with Bajoran women and had children, maybe without a certain season 6 episode. This is also outside of mention in Trek lore that we see. This is also outside of mention in Trek lore that we see the Breen for the first time with their mysterious refrigerator outfits. I'll give it 7.5 pins going up Dukat's behind out of 10. Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I think you're right. They're like, let's put Dukat and Kira together and have them like bond or whatever because they're an odd couple. I think it was a bad idea. I honestly do. Like, it just rubs me the wrong way. But anyway, next comment is from Stephen Kennedy, who says, when Dukat brings back Ziyal to Cardassia Prime, he receives the big 3D: demoted, divorced, and disowned. He met someone and decides to run for president of Cardassia, and his slogan is, make Cardassia feared again. Very good. The story will continue in the episode In Purgatory's Shadow and by Inferno's Light, so tune in and stay safe when we review the newest dictator in Star Trek franchise, Donald Dukat. So my rating is 7. By the way, I'm doing this because some earthhole has forced me not to go to Chicago for my 50th out of 10. Well, that's a shame. Sorry that some earthhole stopped you from going to Chicago. Although I've been in Chicago, it's no big deal. I'm not a huge fan of it. It's fine. Nothing against it, but it's another big city in my... I've never been a city person, though. I'm more of a nature person, so... Yes, make Cardassia feared again. That is a good one. So you talk about how Dukat received the big D. I think who was it? It was it was Kyrie091 who was talking about the possibility of Dukat receiving the big D from Garrick. Alright, I'm sorry. But anyway, so next comment is from Benjamin Mead. Indiscretion is a pretty good episode. It's not the worst offender, and the Dukat is nice series since he is threatening to murder a child the whole episode. Ziyal is probably one of my least favorite recurring characters on the show. She is boring. I don't know. I think Ziyal's okay. She's not one of my favorites either, but I wouldn't go as far as to call her boring. Now, I think this might be one of the worst offenders of Dukat is nice. Now, as I mentioned, like, even though they still have him being an asshole and the whole thing's about him trying to murder his own daughter, but even so, like, he does this bonding with Kira, and especially after he decides not to kill her. It just really rubs me the wrong way. I think maybe the Return to Grace might be actually a worse offender in Dukat is nice than this one is, but we'll get there. Anyway, next comment is from Antarius, who says, the B-plot is not my thing. I don't watch Star Trek to see relationship problems like this. The A-plot is much better. Kira and Dukat are interesting pairing, and we get some great dialogue and acting. I can't believe that they have to exhume the bodies. The tricorder should be able to get all the information. I don't remember the episode with Ziyal that well, so I will not give an opinion on her yet. My rating is a 7 out of 10. Yeah, I think the B plot was fine. I don't. There's not much to it, like, to be honest. But I guess everyone has their different. I thought it was maybe a little bit more interesting than the A plot, to be honest. It certainly didn't bother me as much, but you know. Anyway, thank you, patrons, so much for your comments. So my rating for Indiscretion out of 10 is going to be a 5 average. Now, this is one of those times where before I started recording my review, I was like, I'm going to give this episode a 6. But as I was talking, I was like, nah, I'm going to knock this down to a 5. And mainly because of what I was saying about Dukat. About him, the way they betrayed him flirting with Kira, the way they said, oh, I actually loved her, where even if you don't like consider that season 6 episode, even if you don't say that, you know there was a power dynamic there. And it makes the whole thing very uncomfortable. And then this the way that Kira and Dukat are kind of lovey-dovey towards the end of the episode. No. And I think, like, having that Bajoran guy make smart-ass comments was cool, but it's not enough. It's not enough to justify how nice they're portraying him in this episode. Plus, as I said, I just think this episode's boring. Because I'm not into, we're trying to find some ship that happened off screen and some person that Kira knew before the show started. Like, I just can't get invested in something like that, or at least it's harder for me to get invested. I'm sure there's some episodes that would pull something like that off, but you have to do more to get me invested in something that I have no knowledge or interest in. The whole thing with Dukat sitting on something sharp and going, ha ha ha, like, that's too much of, like, Dukat Kira bonding for my taste, and it's not particularly interesting. But yeah, 5 out of 10, because I don't think the episode sucks. Like, we see the Breen for the first time, we see Ziyal for the first time. It is somewhat interesting. I like seeing that dude from Total Recall playing Bajoran. That was cool. So it's fine, like, but too many things bother me about it for me to give this a positive rating. So 5 out of 10. Oh yeah, and the B plot was fine too. Like, I actually find that kind of funny, as I said. A very big step. Like, that was a funny moment in the show. But other than that, it's kind of throwaway. It doesn't really add that much to the episode. So 5 out of 10. So that is it for my review of Indiscretion. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment below, even if you didn't enjoy the video, even if you totally disagree with my assertions about Dukat. You still want to help the channel out, you still liked what you saw. Yeah, help support me, and if you really want to support the channel, you could possibly do so by supporting me on Patreon. There's a link in the description below. I have different rewards for different tiers, such as you can make comments that I read in my videos like I just did. I have a series of patron-only videos that I make exclusively for my Patreon supporters, where I revisit reviews that I've already made. And, pre-releases, stuff like that, you can check out if you are so inclined to do so. So let's see what's coming up next on their channel here. Thursday will be my review for Rejoined, staying with DS9. Saturday, I'll be doing a patron-requested video, Top 15 Star Trek Villains. And then on Monday, it's back to Voyager, where Voyager Season 2 finally starts to get good with my review of Persistence of Vision. So that's what's coming up on my channel. Be sure to check me out as I continue to cover Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Voyager and many other videos on Star Trek and other shows as well. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.